Today in math, we're going to be talking about the different properties in math. We're going to be talking about 5 different properties: the identity property, the zero property, the associative property, the commutative property, and the distributive property. The first property we're going to talk about is the identity property. And here, when we're talking about the identity property, I'm talking about an operation that you can use any number times, we're using multiplication, times 1 equals that same number. For example, 7 times 1 equals 7. You can use any number. 24 times 1 equals 24. It doesn't matter how large or how small the number is. 4,283 times 1 is always the number that you're multiplying by 1. The zero property works the same for multiplication. And what I want you to remember about the zero property is any number times 0 always equals 0. For example, 7 times 0 equals 0. 32 times 0, 4,283, 491,638. Any of these numbers multiplied by 0 will always give you an answer of 0. It doesn't matter how small or how large the number is. Anytime you multiply it by 0, the answer is always 0. All right, the associative property. This is a different property, and you're going to be associating your numbers in your math problem. The grouping of factors can change, but the product stays the same. And I have some examples for you too. And if you look at this number sentence here, I have 2 times 3 in parentheses, and the parentheses mean that you always work that part of the math problem first. Times 3 equals 18. So if I'm working this problem, I'm going to work the 2 times 3 in parentheses first, and 2 times 3 is 6. And then you're going to multiply that times 3, it equals 18. Now notice my problem here. I have exactly the same numbers, but I've just moved the parentheses from 2 times 3 to 3 times 3. So I've changed my parentheses, but I did not change the number. And the associative property means it doesn't matter how I group my numbers or how I associate them, the answer is still the same. Look at this problem. So the parentheses mean that you have to do that operation first. So 3 times 3 is 9. I'm going to multiply that times 2, and notice my answer is the same. So what I want you to remember about the associative property, it doesn't matter what numbers are in the parentheses, the answer will still be the same. You can move the parentheses, keep the numbers the same, your answer will still be the same. All right, the commutative property is another property that we're going to be practicing in class. And with the commutative property, you can multiply 2 factors in either order and still get the same product. Let me show you some examples. I have 3 times 4, and we already know that 3 times 4 equals 12. 3 times 4 is the same as 4 times 3. Notice that these, and I like to think about houses in a neighborhood that are side by side. I can switch those. They're still neighbors, and they still are going to equal the same thing. So I think about communities when I think about commutative property, and it doesn't matter what order the numbers come in, the answer is still the same. All right, we're going to also work on distributive property in class, and my definition here that I need you to have is multiplying a sum by a number is the same as multiplying each add-in in the sum by the number and adding the products. A really long definition, I know, but let me show you some examples. Here I have 10 plus 6 in parentheses times 5, which equals 80. Now you already know that we're going to work out the parentheses first, so 16 times 5 is 80. Now this number sentence is the same thing as, notice I'm distributing these numbers out. That's why we call it the distributive property. I'm multiplying 5 by each one of these numbers, and I can write it this way also. 10 times 5, I'm going to put in parentheses. And then I'm going to add together multiplying 5 times 6. So if I work this out, 10 times 5 is 50, and I'm going to add that to 5 times 6, which is 30, and my answer is the same. All I'm doing is distributing this 5 and multiplying it by each number in parentheses.